I mean, really the relationship deal is, I think, hard to navigate for most people because, I mean, is it just that we just don't understand the other person? You know, I mean, I
Totally,
think it,
totally.
because when you said right now, it really, you said, to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel heard, to be understood. I mean, it's almost not even that crazy of a concept of what you're talking about. I mean, if you could just understand somebody, matter of fact, I just had a conversation with my daughter. She's 16 years old. And of course, when they're 16, a lot of emotions going on, right? A lot of stuff's happening in their minds and their, in their hormones, everything. And we're having a conversation. I said, I think the most important thing that we can do to create a better relationship between me and you is for us to understand each other. And I told her, I was very, very direct with her. And I said, I really understand you. I said, because you're kind of me in girl form when I was your age. I mean, we're actually very similar in a lot of ways. And it was crazy how I turned kind of a negative conversation into a positive conversation just by saying, I understand you. Like, I get you. I totally get why you're feeling like you're feeling. And it just changed everything. It was really pretty cool. But what's your thoughts on that?
Oh man, so many things. It's so funny that you're talking about the understanding piece, because we just came out with new apparel that one of the main themes of the apparel and just our brands is seek to understand. And especially in the world we live in right now, right? Where people are polarized, people are whether it's politics or religion or whatever category, people are just completely separated, when it's like, why can't we just seek to understand the other? And I think when that happens, the walls go down, people can see maybe the hidden truths that neither party are seeing, and be able to get to a place back to love, a higher love. And I think from that state of consciousness, a lot of solutions, a lot of peace, love, joy, blessing, happiness comes from that, from both parties. And I think at the very deep core, we're craving connection and community more than ever. And it's showing up as fire to fire. But when you seek to understand, I think that's a great place. So it's awesome that you're doing that with your daughter. And I think the other thing that came up when you talk about the differences between men and women, there's so much that can be said here. But one of the things coming up at the present moment is some great work from Alison Armstrong, since I mentioned her earlier. She's got a great book called Understanding Women, Unlocking the Mystery. And one of the things that we talk about in our coaching is kind of stemming from that. Back with our ancestors, when we were hunters and gatherers, men had to go out and hunt, for the food. And they had to be so single focused on one thing that they couldn't have a lot of things going on. It had to be single focused. Now the women, on the other hand, had to hold the baby, hold the basket, walk throughout the field, scanning the peripheral, making sure there's no threats or anything coming by, being able to look at the right berries to pick, being able to hold all that, scan, remember the berries, which ones are actually poisonous. Oh, this one with the 3 stripes, you can't do that. Oh, the 2 stripes with the dot here, I can do that. That's why they pay attention to details a lot of the times. So they can multitask and do that very well, whereas men cannot. And this has been proven in so many different areas. But understanding that, when she knew that if I was focused on a task, that it was hard for me to hear what she was saying or anything else, that she had to, in a very loving way, say, hey, love, I want to talk to you about something, whatever it was, is now a good time? If it was, or if it was another time, great. She knew that I could only focus on one thing at a time. Whereas when there's a lot of stuff going on, we get chaotic and we may react to something. But knowing that, oh, my mind, can only do one thing at a time, not in a bad way, but just understanding that. And also, we love, as she would say to Alison Armstrong, we love to kill the deers, back in the answer. If we have a task, if we need something to do, we have a mission, we're going to go and shoot that deer. We're going to go and hunt that. So rather than men wanting to fix certain things when women just want to be heard, because that's kind of a classic thing you'll find around relationships, and men want to do that, want to fix stuff. Well, she knows when she actually needs something done, when we need to kill the deer. she knows that about me, right? She knows that about men. And so she's like, babe, I have an X task for you. And I'm like, yes, and so she can utilize that in the right ways. So again, just anytime we can understand each other, then we can help each other grow in that manner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And when we were talking about books and authors, and one person that came to my mind was, and I know this is going to sound weird because it's completely not your normal relationship book, but and I'm in the investment business. His name's Ray Dalio, and he wrote a book called Principles. Okay,
yes,
he wrote a book called Principles. And so how it pertains to business and also relationships, creating great relationships, is the fact he talks about radical transparency and radical truthfulness. And I think that what they did in their company to create the best, the greatest hedge fund in history, is they all made a decision early on that they're going to seek to understand each other in a way that's transparent and truthful, where, they can, tell somebody else. I mean, matter of fact, the lowest guy on the totem pole can go to the highest guy on the totem pole and say, you're wrong. And this is why I think you're wrong. And the top guy is not going to get upset by that. He's just going to say, okay, show me how, we can make it better, and show me how it's, because everybody's seeking to understand the truth versus trying to just appease somebody else. Because I think sometimes that appeasement leads to resentment, maybe.
Yeah.
It leads to that animosity that builds up over time. When you stick so much stuff under the rug over time, obviously, eventually it's going to explode. And so it was a nice little, thought of kind of bringing business and relationship books together. And so tell me a little bit about the 5 Ps. So, what's that about?
The 5 Ps. So the 5 Ps, initially I had a company called Resilience for Humanity. And that's when I started talking about the 5 Ps, but it blended very well actually when we started when both me and my wife kind of combined our companies into what is now called Relationship Renegades. And it actually started to work very well with relationships when it came to how to find the love and lifestyle you've always wanted. And so the 5 Ps are presence, purpose, power, people, and preparation. And so, we've always heard, that, well, first of all, the number one human impediment is that we live in our heads with the, constant ego-centered, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough, or maybe I'm better than mentalities. A lot of people, in humanity are stuck in the past because the stories are running them. And what they'll do is they'll create the stories, they'll fuse to that story, emotions will rise from that story. And the next thing you know, they've created their own suffering over and over and over again. And so they're either stuck in the past or they're stuck in the future, hoping, wishing, praying, or maybe even afraid of what may come next. And where we, as we always know, because there's so many books and people who've talked about this for a long time now, all we ever have is the present moment. So I think of doing things, right, to constantly get you back into present, because if all we have is this present moment, and if we not even look to like, how do we conquer the day, but how do we conquer every moment? Not about what I'm about to say next, but like what's beautiful in this moment, and what's beautiful in this moment. There's a lot of magic, right? And that's all. Whether they've always wanted, the answers lie in the present moment. So going forward to purpose, right? A lot of people don't even know what's important to them these days. And maybe they're starting to look at it more and more since the pandemic, right? Like, man, that kind of forced a lot of people like to remove jobs, to pivot, et cetera. Purpose, as we both know in the work that we do, it's important. But not only living a value aligned life, and that may change chapter to chapter, but also vocation, what life is asking of you. A lot of times people they think it's this way, and they keep trying to go forward, right? And they keep trying to like run into a brick wall almost, and they're experiencing a lot of pain. When like, the whole obstacle is the way, right? Like it's like God was telling you, or source was telling you to go right, and you're still kind of trying to go right. So I think, or straight. And so, I mean, I had to face that when I used to do, I mean, I was finance, accounting, oil and gas, consultant, financial analyst. That was like olden days. I feel like it's a past life now. But when I kept trying to go in there, I experienced a lot of pain and suffering. My vocation, what life was asking of me, was what I'm doing now. But it's a hard transition to completely like let go of all that, do a 180. But when you're present, when you're tapped in, when you're starting to really get uncomfortable in life, you start to really craft that purpose, both values and vocation. When it comes to power, there's a lot to say there. I'll just say one thing, a lot of people have lost their power. And I'll put this in terms of relationships. They lost their power in their life. Could be a breakup, could be getting fired, could be a loss of a family member, what have you, right? Or just trauma that they had in their life, whether they've known they've experienced a trauma or not. Well, one way of getting their power back, I think it's a great practical tip and just something important to know, is most people these days are numbing themselves, right? They're distracting, hiding, suppressing, denying what's going on within themselves. They'll Netflix and chill. They'll numb out in some way or another. But all those emotions, it has power over them, right? It's literally, Daniel, like holding a beach ball underwater. If you held a beach ball underwater, right? There's a lot of energy that you have to keep to try to keep that beach ball underwater. Now, most people are having like a lot of beach balls underwater. They're holding it. It's taking their energy. It's sucking their energy. Well, to release that beach ball is to accept and welcome all the emotions that they're experiencing. So if someone gets triggered and they're feeling guilty, shameful, anger, if they said, anger, come on in, I'm glad you're here, really feeling anger, for example, because it's just energy, it's just data, to really have that process and flow out of you. By accepting anger and saying, I'm glad you're here, the power that the anger doesn't have control over you, you have control over it. You immediately took your power back. And then that beach ball is released. There's a lot of freedom from that. And that's a whole nother workshop. But, so power, I think, is so key in a lot of ways to gain your power back for everything you want in your life and your relationships. People, very easy. I'll just say there's a way to create your tribe, connection and community. That's important, right? With everything in life. And then preparation, I'll just say, with the time that we have, there's a quote that says, life is like the ocean. There's always going to be waves. The good news is that you can learn how to surf. And I think if you can prepare yourself in a stoic way, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, financially, all these ways, 1% better every day, then that upward trajectory is going to be able to prepare you for those waves. When they do hit, they're not going to be as bad. You're going to be able to get back on the surfboard faster, bigger, faster, stronger. So I think having those 5 Ps readily available, I think really allows you to move at an upward trajectory, really connect more with the self, and enhance all your relationships going forward.
Thank you for watching our short clips on Alonzo Academy. If you'd like to watch the next short clip, click here. If you'd like to watch the entire podcast, click here.